We were doing Entamoeba histolytica, and the quotation for today is that I'm not telling you it's going to be easy, I'm telling you it's going to be worth it. In other words, doing medicine or dentistry is an uphill task, there's no doubt about that, but at the end of the day, it's worth it. Coming to the topic, in my previous lecture, we did the morphological features, life cycle, and the pathogenesis of Entamoeba histolytica. And today I'm moving on to the lab diagnosis, which is a very important examination question. Now, in acute and chronic amoebiasis, stool specimens are sent to the laboratory for macroscopic examination and microscopic examination. Macroscopic examination is we look at the stool and try to find out what it looks like, its consistency, whether there's blood there or there is mucus there or not. And microscopic examination is very important because by this method we have to differentiate bacillary dysentery, which is caused by bacteria Shigella, from amoebic dysentery, which is caused by Entamoeba histolytica. Now, at least 3 stool specimens should be examined, and in case of acute amoebiasis, dysenteric or diarrheal stool is seen, and this stool has blood and mucus in it, and we are going to look for the motile trophozoite which have ingested RBCs. Whereas if the stools are formed, then as you see over here on this slide, then you're going to look for the cyst, and we generally look for the tetranucleated cyst, which I have discussed in detail in my previous lecture. Now, coming to the macroscopic examination or naked eye examination, the color is important. It could be dark red or brown in color depending upon what it contains. If it has fresh blood, it's going to be reddish in color, or there could be a brownish colored stool, maybe passed with dysentery. The odor is offensive, as you can see here on this picture, and when you do a microscopic examination, you see a few pus cells, and then you see clumped RBCs, and one of the important diagnostic feature is the presence of these diamond shaped crystals, which are known as Charcot latent crystals. These crystals are only seen in Entamoeba histolytica dysentery and not seen with the Shigella dysentery. Then we are going to look for the motile trophozoites, which have this ingested RBCs, as you see over here. This is an unstained stool specimen, and this is the trophozoite of histolytica. And you can identify this by the presence of this nucleus, which has a central karyosome, and it has these dark ingested RBCs. This is a stained stool slide. You can see this material, you can see the pus and RBCs in the stool specimen, and this is a slide which has been prepared from the stool specimen, and you can see these inclusions which are dark colored RBCs which have taken up the stain. This slide is showing you the wet mount, which is in saline, or we are using the stain, trichome stain. The slides are very easily prepared. When you get the stool specimen in the lab, you take a drop of saline on a slide, add a loopful of the stool specimen, mix the two together, and you observe it under the microscope. If you want to stain the slide, then you're going to put a drop of trichome stain, and again you are going to see these inclusions, dark inclusions. The slide becomes colored, and you see these dark inclusions which are the RBCs. So motile amoeba with pseudopodas, they are the pseudopodas, shows them they are motile, and then these trophozoites have ingested RBCs. This is the nucleus unstained slide, and here you can see the RBCs, whereas in this stained slide this is the nucleus with the central karyosome, and these are the RBCs. Cysts are tetranucleated. This is an unstained slide. You can see the 4 nuclei, again with the same characteristic feature that their central karyosome is there, and we have discussed the cyst in detail. It has the nuclear membrane have this fine chromatin lined on it, and this is the stained slide, and again you can appreciate 1, 2, 3, 4 nuclei in the cyst. Now, the MCQ which is related to this part is given over here. The most distinctive feature of trophozoite of Amoeba histolytica on fresh stool specimen is, now whenever you look or you start doing your MCQs, you have to go by exclusion criteria. You have to read all the options, excludes the options which are not fitting in that criteria, and then pick up the best one. This is the one best type. Presence of pseudopodia is there. It's not anything very special. Erythrophagocytosis, which means that RBCs have been phagocytosed by these trophozoites. Yes, this is something special. Presence of 4 nuclei is wrong. It has just 1 nuclei. Presence of intracytoplasmic vacuoles are seen with not only with this but also with E. coli and Amoeba coli. And the presence of eccentric karyosome is not a characteristic feature of Entamoeba histolytica. It is seen with Entamoeba coli. So the answer is erythrophagocytosis. Now, besides this, two other tests are highly specific for Entamoeba histolytica. Number one is the presence or detection of nucleic acid of the parasite in the stool, and this can be done by performing PCR assays, or we can use DNA probes. The DNA probes are going to go and hit the DNA and helps us in identification of the nucleic acid, and we will be discussing PCR as well as DNA and all the other serological tests in detail when we go to the serological part of this topic. Then is detection of antigens of Entamoeba histolytica in stools and liver aspirate, and in this case we are going to perform indirect hemagglutination tests. Two criteria are utilized to distinguish between Entamoeba histolytica and Entamoeba coli. Number one is the nucleus of the trophozoite, and I have done this in the previous lecture as well. This is Entamoeba histolytica, and here you see Entamoeba coli. Look at the nucleus. Here the nucleus has a central karyosome, and the nuclear membrane has fine chromatin granules. On the other hand, with Entamoeba coli, the nucleus is eccentric, or the karyosome is eccentric in the nucleus, and then the chromatin present on the nuclear membrane is coarse. It is much thicker as compared to what you see in Entamoeba histolytica. Secondly, with Entamoeba histolytica, you see these ingested RBCs, whereas with Entamoeba coli, you see vacuoles containing bacteria and there are no RBCs present here. So this is a very important feature which helps us in distinguishing between the trophozoites of Entamoeba histolytica and coli. And next is the cysts. The cysts are also of different sizes. In case of Entamoeba coli, the cyst is like 6 to 15. Entamoeba histolytica, the cyst is 6 to 15 millimeters in diameter, as compared to that of coli, which is about up to 25 millimeters. It is much larger. Secondly, the number of nuclei. In this case, there are 4 nuclei with central karyosome. On the other hand, with Entamoeba coli, there are 8 nuclei, and you can see the karyosomes which are eccentric. So this is a very important feature, the number of nuclei, which helps us in differentiating between the two cysts. So coming again to the MCQ, which is related to this part, the mature cyst of Entamoeba histolytica differs from Entamoeba coli in the following. Again, you have to read all the options before you come up with the answer. Nuclei 1 to 4, eccentric karyosome, no. Coarse chromatin, no. Not with Entamoeba histolytica. 1 to 8 nuclei, no. It is a characteristic feature of Entamoeba coli. Large size up to 25 millimeter, again seen with coli. So the answer is going to be 1 to 4 nuclei, or A. So this is how we're going to move on. MCQs are very, very important. You should know how to attempt MCQs. Next, we are moving on to hepatic amoebiasis or amoebic liver abscess. Generally, the patient complains of pain in the right upper quadrant region, and or there may be jaundice. Patient may present with jaundice, and enlarged tender liver would be there. There may be fever, night sweats, chills, and weight loss. Coming to the pathogenesis of amoebic abscess. The trophozoite, I've already discussed this while we were in the previous lecture, that some of the trophozoites from the submucosa of colon can penetrate through the muscular layer and enter the portal circulation, and from the portal circulation it is carried to the liver. In the liver it is going to colonize, starts multiply, forms a large number of colonies over there, start releasing histolysin, which is going to break down the cells of the liver, resulting in necrosis of the liver cells. And this is basically, as you see over here, this is the starting point of the liver abscess. Now from this side, this abscess or the organism starts, or the trophozoite starts moving to the periphery, and the abscess is then it's spread concentrically, and the central part of this abscess liquefies, resulting in formation of anchovy sauce pus. What you see over here, it's a brown color pus, and this pus, this picture shows you a liver from where the pus has been drained, and this pus contains basically degenerated liver cells, RBCs, few pus cells, and a large number of motile amoebae. If you look at it under the microscope, this is what you're going to see, and this is known as anchovy sauce pus. You can get an MCQ on anchovy sauce pus. You can also get an SCQ. Part of the SCQ could be on this anchovy sauce pus. So this pus, you can see here, 40 years old man with the liver problem, again liver abscess. The pus aspirated from the liver, from the right lobe of the liver. You can see it is chocolate colored and it thick in consistency. So what is anchovy sauce? It's a mixture of degenerated liver tissue, blood, and trophozoite. It is brownish in color, reddish brown in color, and it is thick in consistency. Bacteriologically, which means that if you culture it, it is sterile. You are not able to isolate any bacteria from it because it is caused by a parasite, not by bacteria. Microscopically, if you look at it, this is the microscopic picture of this pus. You see the degenerated liver cells, few RBCs are seen, and occasional WBCs are seen. But the most important diagnostic feature is the presence of these motile trophozoites. So these motile trophozoites are the one, if you see them, then you can easily label the patient as having amoebic liver abscess. Diagnosis of hepatitis, this hepatic amoebiasis can easily be done. You use ultrasound guided aspiration, aspirate the pus, and you look for these trophozoite forms. You can take a liver biopsy, and again the trophozoites can be seen. Stool examination, cysts can be seen in 15% of these patients. Blood examination shows leukocytosis. Serological tests can be performed in case liver is involved. The serological tests become positive. This is because when this parasite is there in the blood, it stimulates your immune system to produce antibodies, and these antibodies can then be detected by performing these serological tests. This can be like complement fixation test, precipitation test, immobilization test, ELISA test. All these tests, you just need to know the names here now, because we will be discussing this in detail when we move on to the chapter on serological tests. Then we can also perform intradermal test, where the antigen of Entamoeba histolytica is injected under the intradermally, and after a few hours you see this wheal formation. Radiological examination shows tenting of the right dome of diaphragm, because the abscess which is present in the right lobe of the liver is going to push up the diaphragm, and you see this tenting. Now, one of the very important examination question is the differences between amoebic dysentery and bacillary dysentery. In amoebic dysentery, the amount of stool is bulky. Here you see scanty stool, acidic pH, whereas with bacillary the pH is alkaline. Important thing is the presence of charcoal-laden crystals, which is seen in amoebic dysentery, whereas they are absent in bacillary dysentery. In amoebic dysentery, amoebic trophozoites are very important. They are the diagnostic features for labeling a patient as having amoebic dysentery, whereas with bacillary dysentery there are no trophozoites, but when you culture the stool on the relevant selective media, you are able to isolate Shigella. Shigella can easily be isolated in the laboratory, and hence we label that dysentery as bacillary dysentery. Summary of this is that you need to know the lab diagnosis. We have already done this, that lab diagnosis is based on the diagnosis of trophozoite which have ingested RBCs and they are motile, or the presence of cyst in the stool, which in case of chronic amoebiasis, they are tetranucleated cysts can be seen. And then you can detect in the stool and the liver aspirate, you can detect the nucleic acid, or you can also detect the antigen of entamoeba histolytica. And besides this, or we can perform PCR, or we can use DNA probes. Then we have done hepatic amoebiasis, in which I told you the pathogenesis, how the trophozoites go to the portal circulation, enters the liver, multiply over there, causes necrosis of the liver cells, and leads to anchovy sauce pus. And what is anchovy sauce? You should be very familiar. You should be familiar with this, because it is very, very important. These are degenerated liver cells with RBCs and pus cells and motile trophozoites. And another important point is that there are no cystic forms seen in the liver. Then we have just done the difference between amoebic and bacillary dysentery. The most important point is that with amoebic dysentery, you're going to look for entamoeba histolytica's trophozoites, which have ingested RBCs, and with bacillary dysentery, you will be able to isolate Shigella in the laboratory. So with this, I've finished with entamoeba. And now your assignment for today is that I've given you an SCQ. You're going to post your answers on the pathology WhatsApp within 2 days. And I'm going to mark your attendance only if I get the assignments. The assignments have to be handwritten, and please don't type anything. You have to write it with your hands and then send the assignment. All right, a 52 years old male returning from a travel tour in India complains of abdominal pain, passage of blood-stained stool, etc., etc. And the examiner has also given you the diagnosis, which is intestinal amoebiasis. So draw and label the morphological forms, diagrammatically explain its life cycle, and briefly discuss the lab diagnosis of acute intestinal amoebiasis. So thank you very much.